Do you want to say the intro this time?
Hi, we are Blake and Brittany, and we moved 4.5 years ago to southern Ecuador with our 4 children.
Yes, we did.
On this video, we want to talk about what inspired us to transition from a very committed homeschooling family to putting our kids in Ecuadorian public school. So we did not move here expecting to put our kids in the local schools. We were a committed homeschool family. We loved homeschooling, and assumed we would always homeschool.
Yeah, that was kind of not in the plans originally. Like Brittany said, homeschooling had always been what we've done and what we intended on doing. And moving here, obviously things have changed.
Yeah, it's not like we were against school. We just saw a lot of benefits to homeschooling and having the family, together, educating the kids, at home together, all those nice things that we really loved and assumed we would continue.
Even though homeschooling is not easy, it's
It was far from idyllic, of
far
course.
from it. It's not the Instagram life homeschool moms you see. It was a challenge.
No, and I definitely wasn't an overachieving homeschool mom either, but I still really valued it. And we really liked things like being able to, emphasize the things that we considered most important in an education and play up to the kids' interests. Like there were a lot of things. We still think homeschooling is really fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely miss a lot of things about it for sure. I definitely miss it.
And side note is, as any of you who your kids go to school know, it's not easier having your kids go to school. Like I wouldn't say we save time or involved. Like we're very involved still. It's still very taxing on a family, so that's kind of funny.
It's probably more time,
I
way
think
more time
so.
involvement now that they're in public school.
So
Yeah.
that wasn't a factor.
No.
And now we have to make breakfast and send lunch. I don't know. I miss homeschool sometimes. It was easier, I think. So
A lot of ways it was easier. But yeah. So one thing we realized, right, when we moved down here, and just in general, is there's this kind of assumption that coming from the United States that okay, schools in other countries must just be terrible, right? They made us not be very good, and maybe that's the case in some places.
maybe some places, but I guess I would challenge that assumption. I've seen that on some like expat forums and things. I read at one point someone was in it was Southeast Asia, but they were talking about enrolling their kids in a local school, a public school, and the comments on the post were like, "That's basically child abuse. That's what they like how could you do that to your children?"
So again, it's just that most people just don't know, right? It's the same.
They assume.
Yeah, they assume it's the same thing when you have the same experience across the world. Expats will report the same thing. Friends and family and people will be like, "Oh my gosh, whatever country they're in, they'll say, "Oh, isn't it so dangerous? Aren't you scared of all the time?" That kind of thing. So there's always this assumption that
Of the unknown.
yeah, that people just don't know what it's really like outside of their context. Sadly, you look at the statistics, and the U.S. ranks so low today on public school education
And it
compared to
varies
most of the
so
world.
much. It varies not even just school to school, but teacher to teacher, right? And
Yeah. So education is obviously a very big topic with lots of nuance.
And there's not one right way of doing it anywhere. You can put your kids in public school in the United States and have an excellent experience.
Yeah, so many factors to play into it, and each decision obviously is solely based on your context and your situation.
And so this is our this is our thought process and all that went into us making the decision.
Yes. So kind of backstory, right, was our first couple of years here, we continued to homeschool while we figured out life, right? While we were still figuring out where we were going to live before we bought where we are now, before we built the house and all of that. When we came down here, we didn't know where exactly we were going to end up. So it wasn't practical to try to put the kids in school anyways.
No, we would have had to pull them out, when we moved to our kind of final town anyway.
Yeah.
And it was a really lovely, especially the first year while we were building this house. The kids were able to, be on site for a lot of the construction. And yeah, we were just we were gone a lot for things like visa appointments and things that would have made school challenging anyway in hindsight.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely the right decision to keep homeschooling for the first couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And they said that first year, more than anything, right? It was just us figuring out what the heck we were doing here and life here and, building relationships and all that. And so settling in. So after having the kids in school now for years, I can see how that would have been hard. It would have been really hard if we initially put them straight in for us.
At least, in our little public school. So that would have been, I don't regret that we had the kids home for those first couple of years. It was really special to be together as a family, just kind of constantly. I think it made the transition for the kids, they had a lot of stability, and we didn't just throw them into that environment. So
yeah, but what happened? Why?
Well, a couple things happened that made us. I was particularly kind of opposed to the idea. Again, not because I didn't like the schools here, but because I really valued the homeschooling. And so, but various conversations we had with people, various other factors started nudging us just to be open to the idea of putting the kids in school, which again was such a foreign idea at the time when in fact, the first few people who mentioned that maybe we should look at doing that, some friends of mine, even back in the United States, and I said, no, that's definitely not what we're supposed to do. But their gentle guidance stayed with me, and here we are, we're 2.5 years into our Ecuadorian public school journey. So here are some of those specific things that influenced our decision.
Yeah. So we realized that the kids' Spanish had kind of plateaued at a certain low level.
About a year after being here.
And we ended up meeting some kids who had been here already 10 years with hardly any Spanish. And so that was kind of a wake-up call initially.
It's possible to live in a foreign country, even for children, and children are known to absorb languages quicker and to not speak the language. There were a lot of factors there, like COVID and things had limited social interactions and so on.
True.
But it was definitely, we can't just live our ordinary life and expect the kids just to start speaking perfect Spanish. And so from the get-go, we were really intentional about seeking out Spanish language opportunities for the kids. Church, we chose intentionally a Spanish language. Friends.
Yeah, I mean, most of our friends, so where we were living the first year, the vast majority of our friends were directly tied to our Ecuadorian community there. And so the kids had lots of friends, and they played amazingly with very limited Spanish.
It was very sweet. And we brought in a wonderful friend of ours, an educator, to teach private Spanish lessons to the kids, and they definitely advanced, but they definitely got to a point where they were not continuing to advance, where they weren't comfortable speaking. And we realized, okay, this is not working as far as language acquisitions go, because our home, we speak predominantly in English, even at home. Why wouldn't we?
Except for our youngest now.
Okay, our youngest speaks predominantly in Spanglish. And we throw in random Spanish words in our every conversation that just fit better, which is fun. It's delightful. But that's not going to change. And a lot of our homeschool was in English. That's what our resources were in. Our curriculum was very, Western centric. That wasn't going to change. Yeah. If we realized that something drastic would have to happen in order for the kids to really become proficient Spanish speakers. And that was very important to us.
All right. And within this time period, we also had some job loss and issues that we weren't expecting.
Yeah. And so we spent a year looking for a job for Blake. And towards the end of that year, we started realizing that my skill sets and education background kind of lend itself more to online work than Blake's did. And I'd basically been a stay-at-home mom. And so it didn't occur to us initially that perhaps I should be the one looking for work at that point. And so that was something we were coming to terms with just along the same time that we were realizing the kids' language had plateaued. But of course, if I was working in any capacity, full-time or part-time, that would impact my ability to continue homeschooling, especially the younger kids. The older ones were more independent. And also, we had been living in our home for a year, a full year in our town, starting to get involved in our community specifically. And we had made some friends, specifically in our little town, which made the school seem so much less intimidating. We were able to ask questions about it, about how it worked because it was so foreign to us. And that made it all, yeah, less intimidating for sure, being able to have friends to kind of come alongside us as we began that process. Like, okay, we could see this maybe working out. And the kids had friends too through that. They had a handful of friends attending the little local school. So they weren't going in just without anybody. So
Yeah.
all of those things, those kind of concrete, really practical things were all just kind of influencing our decision. But there were also some more like, I don't know, vague kind of like thoughts that factor into this as well.
So after being here for a couple of years and kind of seeing how life works here, how families operate here, like coming from the United States, right? Like you always have this mindset of like each kid needs to maximize their education, maximize their opportunities, income potential to be able to be successful, move out and have their own house, their own life, like have completely separate lives from the rest of their families, right? And so it's what we do in the United States, right? We grow up, we go to college, we move out, and we buy our own house and have our own career and go on. And so as we transitioned here and really started to understand how things work here, and actually that families sticking together and people living together, they could study and without that forced like you've got to get out and make your own money and do your own thing and get your own house, like that kind of mentality, because families stick together the way they do here and support each other the way they do here. But it's different, right? And so that really
different way of looking at the future and opportunities and what we wanted for our kids.
Yeah. So that really kind of started to change a lot of what we were thinking.
And I mean, we don't know that our kids will all stay here. They all talk about like their futures. They see their futures in Ecuador, in Latin America. But we realize like you can't have it both ways. You need to, we did education one way in the United States with the United States future in mind. And here in Ecuador, it's like, do we still plan for our kids' future like as if it's in the United States? Well, no, like let's plan on a Latin American Ecuadorian future. And we'll take steps with that in mind, knowing full well that some of our kids may end up other places.
Well, sure, but that being said, the university system here and the education system here actually prepares kids, especially if they've got English, right, that they could easily translate into working and doing whatever they wanted if they move back to the United States. Because the university degrees here can actually be accredited and recognized in the United States. And actually, there's a university in Loja that has a program with Arizona State University, right? So you can actually take ASU courses from Ecuador, which is just amazing. It blew my mind. Still blows my mind.
So. But anyway, sorry. No, it's true. That's all good and relevant. And so we chose to plan for this Ecuadorian Latin American future for our kids and made those decisions with that in mind. Whereas if some foreign families plan on their kids returning to the United States, which isn't wrong, of course, but they would maybe make other educational decisions for their kids. So there's again not a right or wrong way of doing it. Or maybe they would put their kids in like an international school, which was not even something we would have ever done, I think. So, but that's just us and our family and our choices. And so Blake was just talking about the college system a lot. There's a lot of people assume our kids will go back to the United States for college, and I don't know. That's kind of funny to me. And we won't touch on this too much, but like Blake was saying, there are good colleges here, and the colleges here like they don't even cost a fraction of what college costs in the United States. I mean, it's basically free compared to what you would pay in the United States. And so already it's like, why would we send them back to get lots and lots of debt when they could and be far away, when they already speak English? I can see why that's appealing for someone going to learn the language and culture, but our kids already have that. So like, why wouldn't they stay here and go to college or maybe another Latin American country, unless they're studying something super specialized and that's necessary. But so thinking that they're going to go to college here, again, the school system, it was much easier done if you're coming through the Ecuadorian school system.
Yeah, so Ecuador, with its Spanish heritage, the Spanish Empire was very big on record keeping, which is great because it gives you lots of history and lots of information. But that has continued on into Ecuador's modern day, and they love records and they want to see records. And so our kids not having any records was jarring,
yes.
and we're still actually dealing with some of that fallout. But
education is, a constitutional right here. Like, all children have the right to go to school. So even us without our records, like they never even considered just saying, "Oh no, you can't go to school here." Like they grinned and bared it.
Well, no, I mean they can't deny it. Yeah. But not having records to transfer over was a nightmare for them to try to wrap their minds around.
Even harder for college, I'm guessing.
Well, that's where I was going with. In order, because college is still competitive here too, right? Like they don't just let you in; you still have to compete and test, and it's rigorous, especially for the national universities. Private universities, you can still get in, right? You test and you pay, right? Because they're going to let you in.
National universities are free, and so they're very competitive.
Very competitive because they don't just offer it to everyone. You do have to test in, and so the kids needed to be within the Ecuadorian school system and have record of being in school in order to apply to the universities. It would make it a lot easier for them to do so.
Homeschooling is not a thing here. It is just not even like, it's just not a thing. It is not on anyone's mind. No one wants to do that for the most part. And
they don't understand why you would.
You would do that. I think most of the foreigners here, their kids, at least where we live, are homeschooled to some extent.
Yeah, and then
no one cares.
There's some private schools and other school arrangements that people use, but alternative schools. But no, as foreigners, we get a pass, right? Like
okay, we'll do with your children what you want, kind of. But if you're trying to integrate into culture, like, homeschooling's not the path forward typically.
Yeah, homeschooling
have barriers.
And it's gotten more recognition though during the pandemic when everyone was doing virtual school here just like they were everywhere else in the world. So but maybe that soured people.
Yeah, virtual school is the worst. I think everyone will agree.
Yeah, virtual school is terrible.
And so we're saying it's helpful to be part of the system if you anticipate your kids potentially going on to university here. And not just, academically and for records purposes, but there are things they will learn, cultural things that carry over to university that it's helpful to know what you're getting into, just how things are done, kind of common knowledge and cultural things that are acquired at school. So kind of along the same lines is, if you've watched any of our videos, you know that integration is really important to us. And even though when our 1 year in our home, in our little town that we homeschooled, we still made an effort to go to events and, be part of the community, there was always this sense that we were on the periphery, especially because we're not Catholic. And so we weren't participating in the local churches, events either, or services or so on. And we didn't want to be on in the periphery of community. But I would say the church and the school are kind of the heart of a small town in Ecuador. And so choosing not to have your kids in school, like, you're missing out on a lot of community, a lot of integration. And I think there is this sense that, like, oh, our school is not good enough for them. And even though we didn't think that and we never articulated that, there's still this whole, like, well, why else would they have their kids in school, right? Why not? It must not be good enough. And we didn't want to send that message at all. That was very, a message very against how we actually felt.
Yeah. No, Brittany said the school is really a central part of the community. And especially where we're living in a small town. And so
it's different in a city, of course.
Yeah, our school is very old school, very traditional. It's kindergarten through a high school, all in one little campus, and they all it's like being thrown back, 50 to 100 years in a lot of ways. And so it is really central to the community. And as Brittany said, there are a number. I mean, in our general region down here, and especially in the town of Vilcabamba, there's a lot of foreigner families, and their kids aren't in the local schools, and there are some that are for sure, but that always just keeps that extra level of separation. that we've talked about in other videos.
And that's fine. Like, you've got to make the education decision that makes the most sense for your family. So no judgment at all.
But we realized for us here in our community, putting our kids in school would actually really help us be engaged in part of our community.
Integrate, assimilate, all that.
But not at the expense.
Yes, and that's the other thing, right? Our kids are not an experiment. It would not be fair to them if we just, toss them into school so that we could integrate and live our dreams, right? That's not fair. It had to work for the kids, and it had to work academically for the kids, socially, academically, emotionally, because it was a huge adjustment, by far the hardest thing we've done here. And so we'll get more to that in a second, but 2.5 years in, we can definitely see the difference, being part of the school has made, and that we are so much more integrated, and our community here is so rich. We know so many people, and that is pretty much all because of school. So
school was like a supercharged that.
Yeah, it's like a crazy cultural crash course. The word in Spanish is choque, crash. And the first year was such a choque. Like everything, every single thing was like hard or baffling, or we just like went totally over our heads. And we speak Spanish. And so many kudos to the parents who don't speak Spanish, who go through this journey, or whatever language, the local language, whatever it is. Like, it'd be so hard, but I know people do it, and I have so much admiration for those families, because that first year was rough. It was good, but it was hard, and the second year was easier, and this year has been easier. And so we're figuring it out. It's kind of cool, but there is a lot to figure out. So
a lot to figure out, and everyone knows already what to expect, right?
And that's one of the huge things.
And they don't feel the need to explain
because
anything.
It's just intrinsic knowledge.
It's intrinsic knowledge.
And so we are constantly having to say, like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what you are talking about, like, I have no context for it. Like, please start from the beginning. And so we'll talk about that more in another video, some of those specific things. But it's made us a lot more empathetic towards immigrant families in the United States, for instance. I can totally relate to what so many families go through when they put their kids in school. So.
But in the United States, you have ESL programs and stuff like that. Here, there is no ESL program. Yeah, it's sink or swim.
We would not have survived if it were not for some really kind, patient fellow Padres de Familia and teachers and directors, people looking out for us. Made a huge difference. So we began, all these things sort of came together, and we began like really earnestly considering if school was the right thing for our family, what that would look like. And we did kind of learn some practical things that helped us make our decision. Like Blake said, all the kids are on the same campus, and that's not normal. I do want to say that is not the normal thing here. Even in our town, which is small, it used to be split up, and the high school, like the older kids were on a different campus than the younger kids. And still, actually, in our town too, sometimes when you get to the older grades, the parents will, bus the kids to a bigger town and a bigger school, or even the big city to go to school.
Because that desire for a parent, right, to get their children the best education they can.
Education is highly valued here.
Yeah, that's common here too, just like it would be in the United States.
But for our school does have one, or our town has one school, and it's preschool actually through graduating high school. And again, that's not the norm. I think maybe in other small towns.
Yeah, small towns it is for sure.
But it's really lovely. So you kind of have that like one room schoolhouse feel to it in a way, and also class size is really small because you get some of the kids go to other towns nearby to go to school. And so it's a kind of a joke in that, like, it's almost like our kids are going to a private school, because, at the bigger public schools, you'll still have 30 kid classrooms, just like in the United States. But at our little school, there might be 8 kids in a class. And so we're like, that's fantastic. Like, that's great. It is like a private school. So that was really appealing. And knowing that all of our kids would be together at one place, we really like that. Really like that they can kind of keep an eye on each other. And our oldest child, who's our daughter, is very good at filling us in on what our boys neglect to tell us. Also, the school day we learned is really short. And, honestly, it probably should be longer as far as academics go. But we really like our family time too. And so the kids are home for lunch and they don't go back again. And I think that's awesome. But their day starts at 7:30 in the morning and ends at 12:30, except for high school, ends at 1:30, 1:15.
Yeah.
And so it's a nice short school day, and then they're home, which is great because, they have some after school activities and so on, and homework, of course. And so,
And that affords us the time and opportunity if there's anything we want to reinforce or anything we want to do in terms of homeschooling, we've got time to do that.
I definitely thought, I was like, well, we'll send them to school and I'll still homeschool them too. Yeah, no, that's not happening. It does not happen like that. But there are certain things that, we still do as a family that we prioritize reading wise or, talking about wise and stuff. So they're not getting home really late in the day. And that's lovely. We really like that. And so also the school happens to be very near to our home, which was another additional benefit that it made us pause.
Pushed us towards the edge.
The kids walk. It's about 15 minutes for them to walk to school.
Generally,
down a mountain. It's very beautiful. They do not walk home from school because that would be up the mountain, and they're tired and have their backpacks. So, but they do walk to school, and they don't have to walk along a busy road or anything. So that was another attractive thing. We already mentioned they already had some friends going there, which was made it a little easier to get used to that idea. And we went and toured the school. We met the director at the time. We spoke to some of the staff members, and it really does feel like, school in the United States in the 1950s. And we mean that in a good way. Like, I like that. The kids wear uniforms, which I love. They're expected to be, respectful and respectable.
They learn cursive.
They learn cursive. They do public speaking. There's a lot that we've learned, but we didn't know all that necessarily going into it. But
and we do have a video as well on was it 13 surprising things?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
a bunch of surprising
things from our kids' school that we put
and
up.
We have more videos in the works because I know school is such a big topic for families looking to move abroad. And of course, this is not perfect. Their school is not perfect. I wish they read more. I wish they wrote more. And our kids didn't go to public school in the U.S., so I don't know how much kids read and write there. I have seen news articles saying that, even in high school, kids are reading very few, like full novels, for instance, which is disappointing. I think that's pretty standard, but definitely a critique I have of the school system here.
But like Brittany said, this is very much an old-fashioned education. They're learning the basics, and they're learning more than the basics.
Yeah, actually, we've been really impressed with what they learn.
Yeah,
but it is low frills. It's low technology. The power can be out, and it doesn't matter at all at their school. Like
low technology, but they're it's like an old schoolhouse. They are learning what they need to learn, learning to be respectful, learning how to learn, which is really good. And then not with all the extra frills and silly things that go on in schools, modern day schools, right?
And again, this is our school. When we posted that other video, the surprising things video, and there were some people who went to city schools in Ecuador. They were horrified at this, rustic combo school. If you go to school in Quito or Cuenca or Guayaquil, maybe you have more of a modern classroom. Maybe you have the technology and stuff, but we don't miss that. We're not sad not to have that. So
yes, like we said, and if you watch that video, we joke because we call it nature school because there's no windows.
You'll have birds in the class.
Birds
how cool is that? They're like birds making nests in the light fixtures, and everyone gets to see the eggs hatch.
And dogs that roam.
Yeah, tarantulas on occasion. It's right by the river. I think it's great. Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, dogs. Every class has like the random dogs that hang out in their classroom all day.
And they spend a significant amount of time during the year planting and caring for gardens and fruit trees and stuff on the property. So
super neat.
Yeah, it's a compost school.
So we really like it. And if we lived in Loja itself, the city, maybe we would have gone for, tried to find the best school. Loja, I don't think has an international school, and we would not have done that. Again, that doesn't align with what we want for our kids education-wise. Then maybe we would have done a private school in Loja. Maybe there are quite a few, that you pay not a huge amount, but I know those are known to be good.
Yeah, there are good private schools in Loja.
That's not even an option where we are, so it wasn't really a consideration. Yeah, and our school has really good stats as far as the percentage of kids who go on to higher education.
It's
So
true.
anyway, so that's lots of things. And like we said, the kids are not an experiment. And so it would not be okay for us just to put them in school for our own purposes. We do want to stress that. Their feelings about it were very much taken to heart. A couple were really excited and a couple were adamantly opposed to it. And Wowgirl said, you will try this and we will walk alongside you, and if it's not what is best for you, we will pull you right out, but you're going to give it a try. And the very first day that they went to school actually was a surprise. We weren't expecting them to start that day.
Yeah.
We thought they had a few more days, but the director called us and he's like, you're enrolled, bring them to school now. And like, okay, kids, let's go. And there were tears and there was some panic. And we sat it was partway through the school day that they got down there. And we sat on a bench outside and just watched the doors, because I was 80% sure that at least one of our sons was going to walk out of his classroom and attempt to leave school and go home. And I was like, well, I just need to make sure that I have an eye on that. They didn't. They did great. Their first day was really positive, but we take it 1 year at a time, child by child. And obviously, if it's not right for one of our kids, we will not insist that they continue. So, and oh yeah, like if the schools were not good, if the schools were not acceptable, then we wouldn't be making this video, right? I mean, of course, but they're fine, like we said, not perfect, but our kids are maturing and they're learning. They come home babbling on about the various things they're learning about. And it's so funny because they're learning about some of the same things we did, of course, but in Spanish. And they don't even have the vocabulary in English, especially the more advanced grades. Like our daughter can tell you all about a cell in Spanish, and and they are learning, Ecuadorian history and.
But like we've talked about, the part of our reasons, right, were we wanted them to have friends, be part of the community, and to know the language. And after the first year, like they were essentially fluent.
Yeah, two of the kids were fully fluent, and the other two now are fully fluent, and the language ended up being very much of a barrier. Like imagine like your little homeschooled kids. They're like, okay, kids, here's school, and make it Spanish. Like not only is this school for the first time, but it's in Spanish. Oh man, they were so brave and triumphant. Like they really did fantastic. And the language didn't end up being a huge barrier. Granted, we could communicate with the teachers in Spanish and the other moms, and we did a lot of that. We still do. It was very interactive for parents here. But the kids were champions. We're super proud of them, and like what an incredible shaping experience for them also. So for better or for worse, but mostly for better, I think. So they're thriving, and some of the kids actually are thriving decidedly more now than in the homeschool environment. Kind of ironically, I guess. Like our daughter is hyper competitive, and so being in a classroom like suits her way more than being homeschooled, where she was unmotivated to do kind of more than just the basics. And so, and for the first time this year, I'm getting messages from other moms asking me about, to clarify a homework assignment, because like our kids are doing so well that they're known to be good students, and on top of things. And so instead of me just constantly reaching out to the other moms, which I still do a good amount of, like, wow, we're figuring this out as a family. It's very much a family effort. So, but definitely want to shout out to our kids who have really risen to this challenge. So huge challenge.
Huge challenge.
This is definitely not, what we imagined for our family, when we first had kids, when they first started school, even when we moved here. This is a very different journey than we envisioned taking. And we definitely miss what we had sometimes, but you can't have it both ways, frankly. And we've made the best decisions that we thought we could make for our kids and for our family. And what we've gained has been really tremendous.
Yeah, so it's very interesting that how all of those things kind of came together at once. And we've realized that really was the right decision for us and for our children. And now, like Brittany has said, and we've said in videos, we are central part of our community. And our kids are a huge part of that, of course. and they know Spanish, and they're learning, and they're growing and maturing, and now they're set up for success, even if they don't stay in Ecuador. We feel confident that their education will actually be sufficient in preparing them for life ahead, and even though the world is changing. All right. Well, I know that was a whole lot,
Yeah.
but it's been a huge part of our life here, and a huge change in our thinking and our kind of thoughts of what the future would look like for us and for our children. And so we are incredibly grateful that we get to be actually in the school, and just how it's really shaped our life, because it really has shaped and kind of changed our life here in Ecuador and our life in our community for the better. And so we are very grateful for that, and I'm very tired as well. I don't know how to do math in Spanish, so that is a challenge.
Or in English.
Or in English. Sure. But it's harder in Spanish. But no, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Average Family Abroad. Let us know any thoughts you have, comments you have. We'd love to explain more on things of school, and we'll do more videos like Brittany said. But yeah, thank you again so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.